Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you here to the 7th race of the season for the RTG 358 Modified Series. Getting ready to go racing here at the Weedsport dirt track. And of course, as always, we kick things off with our heat races. Steve Robbins will be starting on point for this one alongside of Jay Mallory. Mitch Bombard and Grant Wesley will make up row 2. And in row 3 is where you'll find Todd Mallory and Tim DeSchwart. The big story coming into this season, obviously everyone is chasing Ryan Stillwell, who has won 50% of the first 6 races. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Matthew Rodriguez, and Matt, the only other driver that's been able to put up a little bit of a challenge is Rick Gibson. He's been to victory lane 2 times to Ryan Stillwell's 3. Do we kind of call this a rubber match, or Grant Wesley, who went to victory lane 2 weeks ago, is it going to be a 3-man fight here tonight? Going to be an 8-lap shootout here for the first heat, and of course these heats are done by random draw. The iRacing itself actually picks who's in what heat, and so all of those 6 lucky drivers that are in this first heat, they are at this point battling for who's going to be the pole sitter for the main event. 60 laps coming up pretty soon. And he will stay alongside of Steve Robbins for the time being. Kind of interesting that these couple of drivers deciding to go up to that second line as early as they are. A lot of times drivers want that shorter way around the racetrack when that lower groove is wet and has that grip, but looks like now Jay Mallory going to pay the price. He not only loses the lead, now he's under fire from the 88 of Grant Wesley. Now these cars, for the most part here, these big block modifieds, they look pretty sturdy here going through the corners. Not seeing a whole lot of hand motion going on of trying to save the race car on corner entry or corner exit. So for that, with that being said, obviously a lot of times when we come to dirt tracks with the main events, we expect to see quite a number of cautions. Some of these drivers might have to start preparing themselves for some green flag racing when we get to that main event, because normally it's the heats that are rather chaotic, but so far everyone's been able to keep their noses clean, so to speak. Riding on board with second Jay Mallory, as you can see, about maybe two and a half car lengths off the back bumper of Steve Robbins, who had the benefit of starting on the pole. Again, random draw here for this first heat, and he's trying to see if he can start on point when we get to the main event. He's only got a couple of corners left to go, as he's going to be coming around here to begin this final lap. I'm sorry, he's actually going to take the checkered flag here, it looks like. So it will be Steve Robbins who will be starting on point for the main event. Like Jay Mallory and Grant Wesley will be the top 3 when we end up having our main event take place. Getting ready now for the second heat, where we're going to find Sean Green in the 27. Don Kerrigan will line up to his outside. Brian James and Ryan Stillwell, who we just talked about, he's going to be in row 2. And Ethan Sprague is going to bring up the rear of the field. Ryan Stillwell, the best he can start in the main event now, being here in this heat, is second position. And as we saw there with Steve Robbins, Matt, it looks like that it's really important to be able to get yourself that good starting track position, because there was that little bit of a challenge for Steve Robbins, but then he was able to hold off both Jay and Grant and be able to pick up that victory. Drivers get 2 pace laps here, since it is considered a short track, less than a mile. Steve Robbins, just to touch on him, so far this season, 4 top 5s and 5 top 10s in the first 6 races. He's 4th in points coming into this one, 48 points behind the points leader. So, we're on race 7. It's a 15-race schedule. There's still plenty of time for that 073 to get himself up into championship contention.
We just got to remember, every race you can turn your season around, even if it's late in the season. I mean, a great example, remember the 2011 NASCAR season? I mean, once they finally get in that 10-race stretch, you can really start lighting it up and putting it all together.
Green flag in the air, another 8-lap shootout, and that time it looked like maybe Sean Kerrigan got a little bit of a jump on Sean Green. As soon as I say that, he gets up into that outside wall, and it's another thing we'll have to be talking about here. I mean, in that first heat, drivers looked like they were pretty well in control of their race cars, but it doesn't take much of a mistake for your car to find that outside wall. And of course, here with these modified, you can see especially the right side tires kind of exposed outside of that right side shield of the body of the car. So if you make contact with that outside wall, how badly is that going to hurt the suspension?
But when you pop that right rear suspension, it really just ruins the offset of the car and makes it way too loose to drive. So that's definitely going to be something you want to avoid. Everyone's acting and playing nice right now, but I'd be worried about when there's, 10 laps to go and everyone's got to make that mad dash for the win.
There is Ryan Stillwell right now in 4th, trying to get to the inside of Ethan Sprague for 3rd. Mentioned him, a 3-time winner so far this season, winning the first 2 races of the year at Lanier Dirt and Volusia, and then last week at Lernerville. So trying to go back to back for the 2nd time this season.
I'm watching some different strategies here. I'm seeing Ryan Stillwell trying to attack that bottom line more, and it's almost like it shifts at certain laps where the bottom line will be very strong in 1 and 2, and then in 3 and 4, bottom line's not that strong. Then we go back into 1 and 2, and the bottom line loses all its effectiveness. So that's definitely going to be definitely the difficulty trying to track down the moisture to get the most grip here.
Right now, Sean Green continues to hold off Sean Kerrigan as the battle of the Seans up front, as we're now on the white flag lap, getting ready to find out who's going to start 2nd for the main event. And while Kerrigan's close, I'm not sure he has a shot, and was that Sprague that bounced up into the air there, making contact with the inside with his left front. He is going to cross the line in 3rd place still, as Brian James looks like had an issue off the final corner, finishing 5th, but Sean Green will start alongside of Steve Robbins on the front row when we get to our 60-lap main event.
And definitely, I'm looking at that Ethan Sprague incident, and that's going to be the big killer tonight, is guys who are just trying to dig for the most amount of grip down there and just cut it just a little bit too close and just nick the concrete barrier there.
Getting ready for our 3rd and final heat of the evening. It's going to be Brian Ordo who's going to line up on point for this one. Brian coming into this race 7th in points. He'll be alongside of J. Darren Literal. That's row 1. Wayne McDuff III. He is going to roll off from 3rd place, 8th in the standings, alongside of Donnie Fair, and then Michael Massey and Brian Hogue are going to be row 3 in this one. Brian Hogue is that one driver that is trying to reel in Ryan Stillwell for the points lead, but Ryan has had such a good first 6 races. It's 34 points gap between himself and the 14 car.
One guy I definitely wouldn't count out is Michael Massey. He hasn't shown it this season in these cars, but he actually does know good bit about dirt racing and how to run most of these dirt cars. It looks like he just hasn't gotten a handle on the dirt 358s here at the moment.
So far in those 2 heat races, we really only had 1 incident, and that was, of course, that final lap of the 2nd heat. So everybody, for the most part, has been able to keep the racing relatively clean in these heat races. But as you said, when a trophy's on the line in the main event, a lot of things are going to change. We also have had only a maximum of 6 drivers out on track in these heats, and we're going to be putting a total of 17 out there for 60 laps in just a couple of minutes.
We've got to remember, right now there's 6 cars on track, and the pass is relatively easy. But when we have, we believe we have 17 here tonight, having 17 cars on track, obviously there's going to be disagreements about space. There's going to be disagreements about speed. As you see the 71 of Brian Orto, looks like he hit the concrete barrier on the inside just a little bit.
Yeah, he also made some contact with Donnie Fair at the start of this race. I don't know if he spun the tires perhaps, but that's going to put the Donnie Farashine to the point, leaving them to battle for the second position. Ordo now has it. It's going to be Brian Hogue, who started from the 5th position. He's going to try and make his way around Wayne McDuff. Looks like the 3 of J. Darren Littoral actually missed the start for this one, so if he does race in the main event, he'll be starting shotgun on the field, 3 wide going into turn 3.
And that's going to be the big killer tonight. Hey, someone who may not get that great of an entry into one of these corners. And the other two, as you see, Wayne McDuff accidentally bumping the Hogue there. Going to be a disagreement of space, and obviously if something happens up ahead, if you're in halfway of slide, you cannot lock it down that quickly, so you're obviously going to hit him.
Drivers are going to be in the late models later on tonight, and even when these drivers were running the late models and street stocks, they said the street stocks were the cars that you could kind of pull your way to a position. We were told the same thing with these big block modifieds as well. You can kind of push yourself into a spot, use your car a little bit more as a weapon and not really suffer any repercussions. That might be why we're seeing some door banging and leaning on each other here in this third heat.
Donnie up there is just, he's loving life. He's saying, man, you guys keep battling back here. I'll just go ahead and I'll take my heat win.
Donnie Fayer has run 4 of the first 6 races this season as, wow, Brian Ordo got out of shape there off the final turn. Fayer coming into this race, 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s. So another driver that would fit into the category of one of those that you just get the feeling sooner rather than later we would end up seeing him in victory lane. And who knows, tonight could be the night, because there's about 10, 12 drivers in the field that easily could be favorites to win this main event, as near contact and McDuff the third is going to really have to pay for that one. He's going to lose second, third, maybe even fourth coming around here to the checkered flag.
Yeah, McDuff and Massey got into it there just a little bit when Wayne was just trying to... Oh, Massey just clobbered the wall there.
And so it looks like all 3 heats are completed. And as we know, our front row is going to consist of Steve Robbins in the 073 and Sean Green in the 27. So, as we saw there, Matt, you know, obviously it seemed like for the most part these drivers were willing to give room, not racing quite as aggressively as we're used to seeing. I mean, more often than not, when we get to these heat races, we end up seeing at least a flip or two. We didn't see anything like that. Does that set the tone here for this main event? Maybe these guys are going to be like, okay, passing's not that easy. Let's settle in at least the first half of this race. Wait until the second half, because they do have a faster pair, but I don't think they'd want to use it real early on in this race.
Absolutely, you want to hang on to that faster pair as long as possible. Patience, patience, patience. That's going to be the big key tonight. Of, hey, you know, that guy in front of you may not be giving you the room, maybe holding you up a little bit, but it's not a smart idea just to drive into him. You're going to have to give a little bit of patience, because eventually, yes, he will slip up. And if you force him into that mistake, capitalize.
As drivers will finish the warm-up here and prepare for 60 laps of racing here tonight at Weedsport Dirt Track. We're going to step aside for a commercial break, and then we'll be back here for the start of the main event here this evening.
It's a road few dare to travel, a journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the ultimate prize. Because the reward is well worth the risk. The 2021 NNSCRA Daytona 500, Saturday, February 20th, exclusively on Flatout Racing Network.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
It's a road few dare to travel. A journey.
We welcome you back here to Weedsport as we're ready to go main event racing here tonight in race number 7 of the RTG 358 Modified Series. You saw the 3 qualifying heats earlier on. It has now set the field for our 17 drivers that will get set to take the green flag. Looks like we're waiting on one driver to get on track, and indeed he will, so it will be 17 drivers that will take the green to start this one, with Steve Robbins on point, Sean Green in second, Donnie Fayer in third. Those are the 3 drivers that won their heat races. And one thing I gotta wonder here, Matt, is when all 3 of these drivers won, they dictated the line that they wanted to run into the corner. Everybody else was forced to try something different if they wanted to take the race lead. So I would say, even though it is 60 laps, these guys up here with the best starting track position, I mean, that's probably the one thing every driver in the field wanted to have.
Definitely. And that pretty much gives you the keys to restarting the race. So you can choose, hey, when you go. And obviously, you want to get that early start so you can rush into turn 1 and you can take full advantage of that track.
Now, Grant Wesley, obviously these modifieds did not run last year. Last year, the first race were the street stocks, followed by the late models. But the last time we were here at Weedsport with the street stocks and late models, Grant Wesley swept the entire weekend. He's going to be rolling off from the 7th position. And the guy who's leading the points, Ryan Stillwell, starting back in the pack in the 11th position. So what do you think? Worried since we didn't really see a lot of drivers capable of passing in those heat races?
You know what shocks me the most is that people are really going into this race thinking that Grant Wesley is a sleeper to win this race, obviously off of last season in the street stocks and both the late models. But obviously he has not had that great of a season in 358, so it's worth it to see what he can do here.
We're about to find out if he'll be able to sway through traffic as green flag is in the air. 60 laps of racing here tonight. Best battle's going to be, well, it was going to be for 3rd. Then it turned into 2nd because it looked like the 27 of Sean Green completely overdrove the entry to turn 3.
Oh, 14 got tagged by, looks like the 9 there. Caution is out.
Ryan Hogue in that 14 machine spun around there in the middle of 1 and 2, gets the thing refired and drives away, but because of oncoming traffic, the caution will come out. We do have a driver that was in the server, it looks like, but not able to get on track, and that is 2-time winner this season, Rick Gibson. Was kind of wondering where Rick was since he had been able to be the only other multi-time winner included with Ryan Stillwell, but he may have missed the start.
Yeah, it looks like this is just kind of a textbook incident of what we said was going to happen, where a lot of these guys are just trying to dig for as much as they can into the corners, and Brian just kind of went down a little bit further, and Ryan just thought he would be able to hold it up just a little bit higher, and fortunately just met in the middle.
One of those cases that we normally don't really hear about as much at a dirt track, but knowing the driver's braking zone in front of you. And I mean, we had a couple of near misses prior to that spin as well, as we saw Sean Green actually overdrive turn 3 and nearly run into the back of then second place driver Donnie Fayer. So a lot of drivers seem to be struggling with that. And again, I think it goes back to the point we were making, where these drivers in the heat races, they were out there battling with 5 other competitors. Now you put them out there with 16, 17 other competitors. It's an entirely different thing.
Absolutely. And I'm looking back at that incident. Brian Hogue made a really smart choice, just not trying to gas it up, just held it exactly like it is and made sure he didn't drive back into the field, and everyone else did an amazing job avoiding it.
Unfortunate thing there, because of not really much contact with Brian Hogue, did not have to come to pit road and use one of his faster pairs. Green flag back in the air. These are going to be quick pacing laps, and again, for those that don't know, keep an eye on the ticker up in the top left, because caution laps do not count. It is 60 green flag laps in this main event tonight, and Donnie Fayer putting a challenge on Steve Robbins for the race lead.
Oh, wreck in the back! It looks like, oh no, Darren Literal. He was up on his roof there for a minute.
And gets it back on all 4 wheels after that humble in turn 4. Caution going to fly yet again, only 4 laps in, already working our second caution. And in terms of the 2 cautions we had, obviously this one has had the more violent wreck. We'll go back and take a look at the replay of what happened. 3 wide ahead of him there, it looked like. And oh wow, there's that concrete wall that is just between the entrance of pit road and the exit off of turn 4, and that is what literal hit.
But man, that's what we were talking about. That's exactly what we were talking about, where it's not even the initial incident that's really the issue. It's the chain reactions of that incident where, hey, Darren did not have any time to check up. He unfortunately just drove into it, and then at that point, hey, he's at the mercy of everyone behind him.
That was, I believe, Todd Mallory, Wayne McDuff III, and Tim DeSchwart that were 3 wide ahead of him, and he thought about looking to the inside 4 wide perhaps, as they were making contact in that 3 wide formation, but as we can see, obviously that did not work out for him. A couple of drivers came down pit road already. Looks like Mitch Bombard as well as Michael Massey, they came down pit road, and Rick Gibson in the 38 has actually now gotten onto the racetrack, albeit 3 laps down. Oh, correction, he's 4 laps down. And it looks like maybe the 3 of literal may be out of this race now as well. He did have a faster pair that he could have used, but it doesn't look like he is using it here. Looks like he's just going to bring that thing behind the wall, so an early end to his night.
Yeah, definitely looks like it was all by him. I know he was having some internet issues here early tonight, but this one was a manual disconnection, so I believe he's just going to go ahead and park it and get ready for the late model race.
He made 1 start this season. That was at Lernerville as we're back green. Finished in the top 5 as well, finished 2nd in that race, so we were certainly expecting to see a lot more out of him here tonight, but unfortunately it seems that was not to be. As already we've got another incident, that's Wayne McDuff III. Well, we said in the heat races, we for the most part went without incidents. We have not even made it to lap 10, and already we are working our 3rd caution.
This is exactly what I told you. I mean, it's, hey, when we had 6 of them on track, there's plenty of space, and that last heat really showed you we were pushing that limits on space. When we have 17, 18 cars on track, that's really pushing that boundary of, hey, you know, I've been entering like this all day through practice. I've been entering like this in my heat. Well, unfortunately, I can't enter like that anymore because the guy in front of me has to slow down even more because he's got traffic in front of him and so on and so forth.
And we've got cars stopped on the track. Oh, they're waiting for the pace car. But as we saw there in that incident, looked like Wayne McDuff in that one liked to make contact with things that rhyme with trying, because he bounced off the initial contact with Brian Ordo. Then he made contact from behind with Brian Hogue. Then came up into the left side of Ryan Stillwell. So 3 different drivers that he pinball off of. But again, if we kind of look in relation to the incident we had earlier with Brian Hogue, not a whole lot of contact and a lot of damage sustained, so still able to keep that faster pair in his hip pocket.
Oro did a great job to recover that car. I'm going to tell you, he's probably sitting in the driver's seat saying, man, I'm a little bit more sideways than I want to be, so...
Obviously, for Steve Robbins and Donnie Fair, those 2 have been putting on a pretty good show in these first 5 laps on these 2 restarts, trying to battle for the race lead, but I gotta wonder if it's a little bit irking them that we keep having these cautions, because one thing that we know when we go to a dirt track, drivers always talk about rhythm, trying to get into a rhythm on when to be able to get back to the throttle, how to enter into the corner, when to exit off the corner, which lane to take. When you end up having these cautions constantly coming out, it throws that rhythm off and you kind of have to relearn it all over again.
I mean, you got to think, you spend all practice doing single car, multi-car runs, you get used to the track, you go to your heat, there's no cautions, keep running perfectly fine, and hey, now we get into race time when you're getting in your rhythm and you finally get stopped in the middle of it. Definitely gonna burst people out.
Another driver that probably doesn't want to see all these cautions is Grant Wesley, because we know he's going to have a fast race car tonight trying to sweep Weedsport for the 2nd straight year. He's trying to get to the back bumper of the 20 of Jay Mallory, and you know, we were talking during the commercial break here as well between the heats and the main event about who were going to be the brave souls to go up to that outer groove to try and find some momentum late in this race. Grant Wesley's one of those drivers that doesn't seem to be afraid to go right up there up to the wall.
Wesley's definitely poking around. I mean, a few laps ago we saw him poking around the high side. We saw him in the entry of 3 really diving down low right there. He dove down really low. he's trying to see what's working because obviously, I mean, you can't run the same line as the 20 as looks like Wesley's going to make a charge on that outside line.
Just ahead of him, Donnie Fair doing the exact same thing as he at least got to the right rear of Steve Robbins. Swings around the outside, going to have some good momentum coming to the line. Didn't lead that lap, but he's going to be to the outside through 1 and 2. Might actually clear off the second corner.
And obviously, if you're looking at this from almost like an overhead view, you can kind of see what Donnie's doing here. Donnie's almost taking a diamond-like approach, and he's kind of cutting the apex of the corner down while Steve is really forced down to that bottom line.
And I think, too, one thing that we learned from the heats as well, we talked about how difficult it seemed to be able to pass. If you are going to pass, you're going to have to try that outside line because more than likely drivers are going to be on the defensive and run on the bottom of the racetrack. Drivers that are on the attack, they're going to have to search that second and third route.
Absolutely. It's the main thing. You want to have that preferred lane, but that preferred lane sometimes A isn't always the fastest, and B, just because you have it doesn't mean you can get ahead of the guy in front of you. It looks like Grant Wesley really sent it in the turn.
Ryan Stillwell right now riding back in the 9th position for the 9, driver that has won 3 races this season. You almost have to wonder which side of the coin it is. Is he struggling right now because of him not having really good starting track position, or is he riding? Is he waiting, picking his moment for later on in this event?
I'd say this is one of the very few tracks where qualifying position and heat position does matter.
Of those 3 wins, the other finishes this season, none lower than 5th place for Ryan Stillwell. As Grant Wesley, he's found some grip up there. Those right side tires were up in the dark area of that dirt, and it looks like he has definitely found something. He has put down lap times a little bit faster than the race leader, Donnie Fair, the last couple of times around.
William Wesley definitely seems to be experimenting. I think he's found something he likes in that middle lane, just trying to ride the cushion just a little bit.
Trying to get alongside of Jay Mallory. Mallory saw a couple of times when Wesley would get to his right rear, kind of making some contact, forcing him up the track on the entrance of the corner, which would hurt Grant Wesley, especially through the center, but then he seems to recover it on corner exit. This time he will get alongside of Mallory, it looks like, in that battle for 3rd place. But Steve Robbins, who runs in 2nd, is up there as well, taking away Wesley's line.
And you just got to remember here,
contact.
some of these guys are also experimenting with this late model race later. They can find something that works consistently for them now. I mean, hey, you got to remember, these tracks do change throughout the race. So you've got to try to find something that will work for you early in the race and later in the race.
These drivers continue to battle for 2nd position. Sean Green, who had a near moment almost completely overdriving turn 3 at the beginning stage of this race, holds down the 5th position.
Wesley overdrove it just a little bit.
And Mallory paid the price. Caution is going to come out for that.
Yeah, we hear it over chat here at the moment. Wesley just overdrove it just a little bit, and unfortunately just overdrove it right into the front end of Jay.
Kind of got the feeling that something was going to have to give with how close the 073, 20, and 88 were running. Here's a look at the incident, and yeah, the 20 comes to a stop, and that's why the caution came out. If he had hit the wall and continued on, more than likely we wouldn't have had that yellow flag.
I mean, I don't really blame him for stopping because I mean, we've seen how a lot of these guys have been attacking that corner and sliding right up to the outside wall. So, I mean, last thing you want to do is be an unfortunate victim to be ping-ponged off of.
Now, these cautions are actually helping the 38 of Rick Gibson. He got the lucky dog under the last yellow, and this one is going to put him now to -2. So if he can catch a couple more cautions, he might be back up in the hunt to try and claim his 3rd win of the season. But longest green flag run we've had so far in this race, and hopefully that will set a little bit of a tone for the final 2/3 of this race. But now Grant Wesley, after that contact, he is going to move up, I believe, into the... Oh, no, actually, correction. He actually is taking the UL for that incident, so that's actually going to drop him back. So, well, that's going to be fun to watch that 88 try and work his way up through the field. Same for the 20, who fell to the back around the 14th position. As we're back underway, Donnie Fayer, Steve Robbins going to renew their rivalry again with Sean Green now under fire from Ethan Sprague, who had that almost near wheelie on the final lap of turn 4 on his heat.
Seeing Hogue and Ordo go at it right here. Ordo looks like he has preferred line on the bottom, but he's running up with Hogue up there.
And just ahead of them is Ryan Stillwell, the highest he has run here this evening, right now in the 6th position and about to jump into the top 5. He'll get around Sean Kerrigan, so it took him 22, make it 23 laps to get up into the top 5 from around a 12th position starting point, but that 9 machine, all of a sudden, he's come to life, and the amount of cars in front of him to pass are getting fewer and fewer.
And you got to remember, Stillwell was involved in the first caution with Hogue, when he ended up just getting a little bit of touch to turn him around.
Like Rick Gibson's actually lost another lap there. He's now fallen 4 laps down. He was 3 laps down just moments ago.
Looking back in the field here, looks like Jay and Todd Mallory are just leaning on each other back here.
Another car up ahead that's way up against the wall. That was the 49 of Tim DeSchwart, and pick up another spot potentially. Caution actually is out. Oh, we got another spin over there. That's the 71 of Brian Ordo. That did not bring out the caution. That was a follow-up wreck. The initial incident, I believe, was Mitch Bombard in the 0-10. But then Ordo got spun around in a follow-up wreck off of the final corner. And for Mitch Bombard, it looks like this was just a single car incident.
I'm looking over that Ordo incident here at the moment, and it looks like he just wasn't expecting it to slow that far down when the caution came out, and unfortunately, just ran into the car in front of him.
Here's what happened to Mitch. Flips it around in turn 4. Car is stopped in the middle of the track. There's oncoming traffic. I think that was actually the race leader, Donnie Fayer, coming into view, so the caution having to be thrown. We'll now take a look at that incident you were just describing with the 71 of Brian Ordo. Now, Ordo did get to keep the position he was in when that caution came out in the 8th position. The problem is he made a little bit of contact with that concrete wall with the front end as well as into the 14 of Brian Hogue. So you have to wonder how that's going to affect his race car for the rest of this run. I believe that was Brian James in the 6th that got a piece of the incident as well.
You know, the guy I'm looking at right now is Rick Gibson, and he's just saying, man, give me 2 more cautions. Just give me 2 more cautions. Just getting back in the lead lap.
Rick Gibson, despite the fact that he has 2 victories this season, he only has made 4 of the 6 starts here at the beginning of the year. Subsequently, he comes into this race down in the 13th position in points. So not necessarily at this point in time a contender for the championship, yet the season is still early, but definitely someone that could tie Ryan Stillwell for most wins this season in the 358 series.
I'm definitely looking at a lot of these drivers migrating to that middle high line now, and not exactly that low line that we saw earlier. Oh, Brian James got tagged around.
And gonna have another caution waving here as Wayne McDuff got collected as well, facing the wrong way. There's the 6 of Brian James. Go back and see what happened. You know, it's interesting that normally at dirt tracks, every corner is a trouble corner, but a lot of our incidents here tonight have seemed to be taking place over there in turn 4.
That's the thing, there's just a lot of price for real estate here. A lot of disagreements in property lines.
You see the contact with McDuff into the left rear quarter panel of Brian James. Now, James was the one that was able to drive away. McDuff, who initiated the contact, was the one that was facing the wrong way and having to refire the car, leaving the scene of the accident. So we ended up having 3 early cautions, got ourselves into a bit of a long green flag run. Now another 3 cautions come out. So if the trends hold here, Matt, we're getting ready for another long green flag run.
You got to be crossing your fingers and hope. Rick Gibson is only 1 lap down.
That would absolutely be a comeback story if halfway through this race, from 4 laps down, he was able to get back in the lead lap and win this thing. I mean, with him being a lap down, we don't really know the true speed of that 38 car here tonight.
I mean, I'd be proud even to get in the top 5 after, being down that far.
Green flag gonna come back out here. Nope, looks like we are gonna get 1 more lap of pacing. The big thing that's been a help for Donnie Fair, as you pointed out early on in this thing, is the fact that you get to control when you accelerate for the restarts. And so you can throw second on back off on when your acceleration point is going to be. I mean, we saw even earlier when Steve Robbins started on pole, he was able to have 2-3 car lengths in hand before they even got to turn 1. So that's a huge luxury that these drivers have. And another thing that you touched on just prior to that last caution was drivers moving up there. We've entered now into where this track has been rubbered in for 25 laps. All these drivers have entered into what we call search mode.
They were just trying to find whatever moisture is left in the track. When we started out, it was about 5% usage. There's a lot of moisture left in it, but hey, we've ran about 30 laps on it now. It's kind of fleeting here, so they're searching around just trying to find any bit of it left.
And that could be why we end up seeing more cautions here in near the closing stages, even into the second half of the race, because with drivers searching to find that grip, they may be having to go to portions of the corners that they're not necessarily all that comfortable with. As Ryan Stillwell, man, he used up both Sean Green and Ethan Sprague through 3 and 4, trying to pick up a couple of spots.
I'm a little bit concerned about Stillwell's strategy. I see him still sticking to that bottom line, and I'm not seeing a lot of these guys really keep committing to that bottom line as they were. 3 wide out of the corner, it looks like Sprague got pinched.
I'm trying to remember which track it was at that we were at last time, as I think it might have been Volusia.
Farrakhan got stopped up.
And it looks like we still remain green, as that stack up is taking place from 3rd place back to around the 7th, 8th position. But Ryan Stillwell, to the question you were just asking about him being down there in the bottom, I'm pretty sure it was Volusia where our last race was. And there was
limited contact in the back.
And there's contact at the front, and it's going to be Sean Green facing the wrong way in turn 4 after it looked like Ryan Stillwell and Ethan Sprague got together in a battle for 3rd.
Yeah, there's contact all the way around the track. There is that original incident that caused the caution itself. But there also was the incident that ended up happening further back. And it looks like it was the... Find a number on the side of that car. Actually, looks like it was Brian Hogue. Unfortunately, just tagged Jay Mallory a little bit.
Watch the contact here between the 9 and the 073. It was actually Steve Robbins. I thought it was actually Ethan Sprague that got into Stillwell, but no, it was our pole sitter. And just wrong place, wrong time there for Sean Green. Had nothing to do with that incident, but because he was pinned on that inside line, the secondary contact was what sent him down facing the wrong way at that concrete barrier. And now if I can get that point out, I was going to bring out about Ryan Stillwell. Back at Volusia, there was a wall down there through 3 and 4 where drivers were kind of walking razor's edge of possibly hitting that. Ryan Stillwell was maybe one of the drivers that went the lowest and the closest to that wall. So I'm not all that surprised to see him down there on the inside line trying to take the shorter way around the racetrack, because he's a risk taker. And if you think about the fact, too, that he comes into this race 34 points over the rest of the competition, it leaves him a little bit of wiggle room to try something different like that.
And see, it's those risks that it's kind of a high risk, high reward strategy where if it works, hey, no one else is trying it. You could really get away with something here. But hey, if it doesn't work, I mean, you're kind of in a hole, but you've got a good cushion for it.
Things got spread out amongst the top 4. It's 5th place where things are wadded up with Ryan Orta, Tim DeSchwartz, Sean Kerrigan, and Grant Wesley. Remember, Wesley got involved with an earlier incident, had to drop to the tail end of the field. He is making forward progress, trying to knock on the door of the top 5 yet again. Swings around Tim DeSchwartz, already moved the 88 up to 6.
Look at Wesley just work that outside. He's run a little bit higher than I've seen a lot of these guys go, and he's really pushing the boundary up there.
And one thing I think we're going to be seeing here in the later stages of this race that we might not necessarily see with the late models is drivers going right up there and rushing that outside wall with no consequences. One thing that drivers always tell us when we talk about the late models is you want to keep that rear spoiler intact. If you make contact with it, it takes away your downforce. As Ryan Stillwell swings around for the 2nd position, he's got one more car to catch to try and get his league-leading 4th win of the season.
Just looking around the field, it looks like Brian Orto and Tim DeSchwartz here really having some issues. I'm seeing Tim just running that really high lane. He's been bouncing out the wall a little bit, so I think he's struggling there in the high line.
Duking continue to hold even, and now it looks like Ordo may have had to bail on the throttle through the center of 3 and 4, so give the 6th position to Tim DeSchwart. Now it's a car way up there. Was that Mallory? Yeah, the 20 of Mallory, who was up as high as 3rd place here tonight after the contact between himself and Grant Wesley put him in the back. He's now cracked the top 10 again. Took the 9th position moments ago from Todd Mallory, now working on Sean Kerrigan for 8th place.
Just looking throughout the field here. A lot of these guys who were down and out earlier are just slowly starting to work their way back, and that shows you how much going to the back of the field or taking that faster to hurt you and how long it takes you to recover.
3rd place under contest with 3 drivers battled for the lead up front. Ryan Stillwell to the inside. Donnie Fayer taking the outside. He'll get the momentum off the corner, keep the spot, but that 3-way battle for 3rd continues hot and heavy.
Yeah, 3 wide into these corners and out of these corners just don't work. I saw Steve Robbins just push up a little bit out of that corner. I'm afraid if they get on the front straight when they're 3 wide, no one gives. It's going to be a giant crunch.
And Wesley keeps taking a peek there to that middle line. He's got Ethan Sprague, who's on the outside line there with him. And if, yellow flag is out. It's going to be Sean Kerrigan in the 15, Todd Mallory, and I think we had a flip right there with at least the 15 car.
Oh, actually there's 2 cars that was flipped over.
Here it was as Brian Hogue was in the vicinity as well. Oh, it was Todd Mallory on the inside line, and those 2 cars just did not get off each other. They were leaning on each other from turn 2 all the way over to the entrance of turn 3.
And that's exactly what we were talking about. These cars, they just cannot handle 3 wide in the corner if the top is pinching down. And wasn't that he was pinching down intentionally, just he was running his line off the corner.
Take a look at this camera shot here with the 220 of Todd Mallory as he's going to flip over, and those fans over there in turn 3 getting quite an eyeful with both the 220 and the 15 going up and over. And I believe now we're starting to enter into territory where drivers that get involved in incidents, I mean, they've already lost the track position. They're probably going to be coming down pit road and taking on that only faster pair that they have today.
You got to think, hey, you got to keep care of your car now. You've ran over half this race. With a clean car or maybe a damaged car, hey, this is your 20-lap dash to recover it.
We have seen Ryan Stillwell, Grant Wesley, Jay Mallory, number of drivers work their way from the back up to the front. Rick Gibson has just gotten back on the lead lap. He'll restart back in the 16th position. What will he be able to do with 18 green flag laps? We'll have to wait and see. It looks like we got another driver that's retired out of the race. 4 laps ago, Mitch Bombard brought his car to the garage area, joining Darren Littoral in the infield.
You know, I'm not too sure what speed Rick Gibson has. When he was riding around the track just waiting for another caution to happen, he was not pushing the car. So I'm very curious how much speed he really has in this thing.
Could be interesting to see if maybe he was holding back as Ryan Stillwell on the attack at the initial start of the race. I think he may have made some contact with the concrete wall with the left front of his machine.
Oh, they're going 3 wide again with Sprague, Robbins, and Wesley up there.
These guys cannot get off of each other as these 3 had a spirited battle prior to that yellow flag, but they've brought some friends along now. Tim DeSchwart in this group, Jay Mallory in the 20. Remember that Grant Wesley and Jay Mallory made some contact with each other earlier. It was Mallory who really lost out in the track position, despite the fact that Wesley EOL'd himself, so you have to wonder, it's a short track. It may be dirt covered, but it's a short track. Would there be a little bit of payback coming?
You just got to remember, and you're seeing it from Grant Wesley right now, patience, he's running out of it. Right now, he's just trying to find any way around these cars because he's saying, hey, I'm faster. I can get around you 2.
Ryan Stillwell keeps putting the challenges there on Donnie Fayer, but Donnie Fayer says, hey, if you're going to get around me, you're going to have to take the shorter way around where there's less grip. How about that stack up there? About 4 drivers nearly running each other over out of turn 4.
Jay made a very bold move.
Grant, yikes.
Ooh. Jay made a very bold move at the previous corner and just dove it on in there, just hoping it would stick.
Grant Wesley's had some trouble getting around drivers, so I think that time he tried using the wall to make a pass, and it just did not work out for him. As now Jay Mallory moving into that 3rd position. Oh, there was contact between Hogue and and I believe that was Robbins. Caution is out, however. 9th time today, and I believe it's Ethan Sprague. What a tough break for the 017, who spent most of this main event up inside of the top 5.
Yeah, it definitely looks like, unfortunately, Sprague may have just got a little bit too overzealous into the corner and ended up drifting at the worst possible time.
He was in this group that were battling for the 3rd position. Here is the contact made as he slides up the track. Oh, actually, no contact made. Wow! What's that car that went flying up there with him? Was that the...
That was McDuff.
It was, yes. Oh my goodness. 017 hit that concrete wall, bounced back up the racetrack, and just nowhere for the 1 car to go.
And that's those mistakes that you've got to worry about of, hey, you're really in a battle, you're trying anything just to get a little bit of an advantage on him, and unfortunately, you just ended up beaching the car in the middle of the corner.
Duff had worked his way up to around the 8th position, and there you see the contact made. Now, he has not come to pit road, despite that pretty heavy hit to the left front tire area. So we'll have to see if there's going to be any suspension problems he'll have to deal with. But when that caution came out, the battle for the lead was still on, and using the inside line and edging maybe a fender ahead was Ryan Stillwell. So the guy that has won half of the races he has started this season is going to be the one to get us back under the green flag with 12 laps to go.
And you saw him slowly work his way up. I'd be very, very wondering what Jay Mallory has for him, because he's been very bold on these restarts. He's kind of driving up the field.
Stillwell, the leader. Fair, who's led most of this race, in 2nd. Mallory 3rd. You've got the pole sitter Robbins in 4th and Grant Wesley in 5th. And update on Rick Gibson, he's up to the 9th position. So I think we can answer the question. The 38 car is fast.
He's fast, but here's the question. Does he have enough time?
That time he made a little bit of a mistake. He's going to lose a spot to Michael Massey off of turn 4, so dropped him down to 10th.
Mallory got a really bad exit to the corner, ended up overdriving, lost a bunch of time, opened up the door to Steve Robbins.
Robbins on the bottom. Now Grant Wesley swinging around the top, looking for the 4th position. Another driver out of the race. That's going to be Sean Kerrigan in the 15. Looks like he will finish 15th place here tonight. Todd Mallory still has not returned to the track after his flip over in turn 3. I don't know if he'll be able to get back out there
Man, look
for
at
the
Wesley.
conclusion of this race.
Look at Wesley's been driving it all the way up there. He's gonna try and make a run for his 3rd place position. He's really been ripping that top line.
Right now, he is a little less, will actually now make it 2 seconds behind race leader Ryan Stillwell, and as these laps tick away, so too go the chances of Wesley being able to win here in back-to-back seasons, as Stillwell has been able to open up now a 7, now 9/10 of a second gap back to Donnie Fair. So forgive the punt here, because it doesn't make sense.
Oh,
but
contact behind Steve Robbins and Hogue.
keep it together for the time being as, Steve Robbins swings up the track there. But I mean, as soon as Ryan Stillwell got out there into clean air in the race lead, he has set sail.
4-car battle here, it looks like, for 5th. I've been noticing Robbins has been overdriving that bottom a lot and been sliding up.
Also, Tim DeSchwart almost up into the wall there. That number 1 of Wayne McDuff, he was involved in an incident in the first half of this race, just got involved in the last caution, still hanging tough in that 6th position.
Mallory and Fair, they're going at it now.
Battle for 2nd place with 5 laps to go, which, barring a caution, may very well be handing this win over to the driver of the number 9 as Mallory drives it deep on Fair and licking his chops. Watching this go down is 4th place Grant Wesley. I think we had a car in trouble back there. I think it might have been Michael Massey. He didn't spin, but he almost wrecked it.
And still almost a drag race here for 2nd.
Still side by side, but the gap continues to open between these two and the race leader. Now a 2.5 seconds, and Ryan Stillwell saying, I don't want to see a caution here, boys. Let's finish out these final 3, now 2 laps. He actually had to get around a slower
Look at
machine
Gibson.
of Brian James.
Gibson managed to work his way up to 5th.
That is a comeback story. Even if he doesn't win this race, he's got a shot of finishing inside the top 5 when he spent the first half of this race trying to work his way back from 4 laps down. Missed the start.
Looks like Brian James is going to be holding up that high line a little bit. Gives Mallory just a little bit of incentive on the inside.
White flag in the air. Oh, contact there for Fayer with Ryan James as Ryan Stillwell is going to see the checkered flag. It's his 4th win of the season. His points lead will grow. Donnie Fayer and Jay Mallory had themselves a heck of a battle there through 3 and 4, but Fayer will hang on. Mallory will bring it home in 3rd.
Man, I am just bewildered that Gibson managed to work his way up the 5th.
Yeah,
that is incredible.
That's amazing. Great comeback run for him. Great comeback run as well for Wayne McDuff, because he started towards the rear several times. Same for Grant Wesley. I mean, there were a lot of drivers. The thing we said in the
look at
heat races,
Mallory.
it looked like it was very difficult to be able to pass. Well, there were about 5-6 drivers in the field that proved us wrong.
I mean, look at this top 3. Stillwell was involved in the first caution. Mallory got ran into by the 88 of Wesley. I mean, these guys fought back.
60 laps doesn't seem like much at a track as small as this, and Stillwell had to start this race all the way back from the 12th position. Patiently, methodically worked his way to the front, had a great battle with Donnie Fayer, and the timing of a caution had him just edged ahead to be the race leader on that final restart, and he was able to bring it home.
Absolutely. And it looks like we've got the 20 of Jay Mallory here ready to talk if you're...
All right, let's bring him up here.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Jay, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, I got you loud and clear.
Man, we were talking during those heat races just prior to the main event. It was looking like you drivers were having a little bit of difficulty passing, but then we saw you and a number of others, when you had to restart from the rear of the field, work your way up through traffic. Was that maybe a case of the fact that you guys were more in search mode in that second half of that race, and so you were able to find something other drivers didn't know about?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys going to the top up there, and we're just train racing, so I went to the bottom and found a little bit of tackiness, and me and the 09 there had a heck of a battle at the end.
Jay, I've got to ask, because when the 88 of Wesley just pushed up into you a little bit, ended up parking you in the top of the corner, did you think you were going to come back? Did you think your race was over?
Yeah, I thought the Kenny U pole modified was running real good tonight, and it was just a little mistake that he got up into me, and I figured we had a good enough car to get back in the top 5.
All right, so Jay, we know that these big block modifies are an entirely different animal to the late models you guys are moments away from climbing into. We saw that you guys were willing to go up there right next to the wall in this one. Do we see that outside line come into play with the late models? Because I know a lot of drivers say they really want to preserve that rear spoiler for the downforce.
I think in the late stages you're going to see that, because I don't think the guys are going to care if they rub a little bit with that spoiler late in the run, and I think you're going to see 2 lanes develop there as well.
All right, well, Jay, congratulations on your 3rd place run here tonight. Congrats on being able to cut your way through the field the way that you did. We'll be interested to see what you're going to be able to do following that up here tonight at Weedsport in the late models. But for now, anybody you'd like to thank or shout out?
Yes, I'd like to thank Kenny Upole and the AIM group for giving me this stout ride tonight, and Brian's Tire for being with me, and last but not least, to the north of us, Oswego Speedway. That's been behind me for over 25 years.
That's Jay Mallory, brings it home 3rd place here tonight with the 358 Modifieds at Weedsport. Once again, congratulations there, Jay, and hopefully we'll talk to you again later on tonight.
Thank you.
User was moved out of your channel.
All right, how about we see if we can get our
User was
2nd
moved
place
to your
finisher,
channel.
Donnie Fayer. Donnie, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you. How's it going?
Going good. Man, you were in a heck of a battle there in the closing stages with that 9 of Ryan Stillwell. The timing of that caution coming out, he had you by about half a car length. If that caution hadn't come out, you had that outside line, you were able to get those runs off the corner. Would you have been able to hold them off?
Well, I was going to say, if it would have went green all the way, yeah, but he was better on that bottom getting into turn 1. And there at the end of the track, end of the race, he had a little bit better car. But, man, it was good battling with all them guys.
Now, Donnie, I've got to ask. Obviously, you finished P2 and the 358 race, but anything you can really take over to the dirt late model race here later tonight?
Well, I ain't been doing too hot in the late models. I haven't been running them too much. I've been running these cars. So hopefully just a little bit of luck will carry over.
There was a couple of times that we ended up thinking that probably track position was going to be important, especially early on, but we saw drivers work their way from the back up to the front. What do you think it was that kind of swung that race around? Because we saw the 073, the 20, you guys were all able to stay up there at the front. Then all of a sudden, there were about 3-4 drivers that came up in the same vicinity that had started back in the mid-pack portion of the field.
Yeah, the longer that race went on, the more grooves you had. So, they just had a little bit more room and be able to get through them cars.
Well, Donnie, congratulations on a second place run here tonight. I don't think your modified, I should say, fell outside of the top 3 the entirety of this race. So a very strong performance for you here tonight. We're going to now give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Skills VR, and I'd like to thank my son for putting these paint schemes together and helping me out. And everybody in this league, man, it's been a fun league to run with.
Donnie Fair, second place here tonight at Weedsport. Congrats, Donnie. We hope that this momentum rolls over here tonight as you look to make your second start in the late models.
All right, man. Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good night.
We hope to talk to you here soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hey, come on. Let's go get a top 3.
I'll try.
User was moved out of your
All right,
channel.
I'm going to go down to Victory Lane, talk with Ryan
User
Stillwell.
was
Cedars
moved
the
to your
second.
channel.
Hey, Ryan, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I got you.
What a season you have been having here so far. 4 trips to Victory Lane in 7 starts this season, but tonight, you kind of had to be patient to be able to get it. Not the best of qualifying efforts back there in traffic, but we saw you slowly and methodically work your way up there to the front. With how we saw drivers up each other's gearboxes in the early stages of this race, how difficult was it to remain patient?
It wasn't too hard because I made a mistake there on lap 2 and actually turned a guy, I believe, and the rule is if you cause 2 cautions, you're done. So if I caused 1 more, if I wrecked somebody, I was done. So I made sure to race guys clean but hard and keep the car safe. But it wasn't too hard to control myself because I knew if 1 more and I was done.
So going into that whole, had to be kind of patient here. How tough was it? Because obviously these cars were very difficult to pass, and both the top and the bottom lane worked. They've held very well. And just, did you ever start losing your patience a little bit and say, man, I'm faster than this guy, I can get around him, but I just don't have that preferred lane?
No, not really, because I pretty much knew that once the bottom wore off, nobody would be there, and it would kind of run up to the top there through the middle part of the race, and everybody would float up, and I just kind of tried to stay committed, and I waited for the track to really slick off to get that 2-lane groove, and then I knew if I could roll the bottom better than anybody, and that's what I used. I was horrible in 3 and 4. I felt like I really made a lot of mistakes in 3 and 4, but man, 1 and 2, I would literally pull 4 or 5 car links on cars at times, and I knew as long as I was just patient, I was gonna get them.
Now, Ryan, the bad news is the success you've had here with the modifieds, it hasn't exactly translated over to the late models. You go into tonight's race currently 6th in points, only 2 top 5s in those first 6 races. However, we should mention that last season, even though it was street stocks and late models, Grant Wesley, when he won the first race, he ended up sweeping the entire weekend. So what's the confidence level going into the late model race tonight?
Confidence level isn't high. The late models drive so much differently, and you really got to take the time to feel the cars out and get reused to it. You're going to see a lot of guys in practice in the late models that are just super sideways and everything because they're just they drive so much different than these things. And so it's going to take a few laps, and hopefully I can come in quick on the track, but I have a feeling I'm probably going to struggle a little bit because that's what's made my struggles for this year is going from this car to the pros and how different it is. It takes me too long to acclimate myself to be able to get to the front. And by the time I do, I'm out of time.
All right, Ryan, we know that you're getting anxious to get into that late model here tonight, so we're going to be letting you go, but not before we turn the mic over to you for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
I want to thank Grant Wesley and all the guys that put on RTG. They are great at doing it. You guys for doing a great broadcast as always. Checkers and Wreckers and BW Sports Ones for always being on the car and always supporting me. And hopefully we do pretty good in the pros.
All right, that's Ryan Stillwell. He is the victor here tonight in the 358 Modifieds at Weedsport. We'll see if he can complete the sweep here tonight. Ryan, we look forward to seeing if maybe we'll talk to you in Victory Lane later on this evening once again.
It's always the plan.
User was moved out of your channel.
All right, so we kind of got a little bit of an idea from the driver's perspective of what differences they're expecting to see in the late models. And I made the point back in the heat races, Matt, where those cars here with the modifieds, they looked rather sturdy. Sounds like we're going to be having a lot more slipping and sliding and drivers having their hands full when they get into the late model cars.
That's exactly what it is. These 358s are just an entirely different beast from these late models. These late models, I'm trying to figure out the right word to say it, but they're effectively almost like a door wedge. They're a very fast door wedge, but they're just an entirely different handful than this.
We'll have to wait and see if indeed we can go back-to-back seasons with a driver sweeping here at Weedsport. Wesley did it last year with street stocks and the late models, and so far, our winner here tonight with the modifieds, Ryan Stillwell, will look to do the same thing here in 2021. We're going to step aside for a brief intermission, swap over to the next session, and get set for what's going to be another 60 laps of racing here tonight at Weedsport Dirt Track. Don't go anywhere. Coverage here on FRN will continue in just a moment. We welcome you back, ladies and gentlemen, here tonight at Weedsport. The lights are out as we get ready now for qualifying for race number 7 of the RTG Dirt Late Model Series. Ryan Stillwell will line up on the front row with Michael Massey for this first heat. Rick Gibson and Brian Hogan row 2. Mitch Bombard, Tim DeSchwart, and runner-up in our modifieds race earlier on tonight, Donnie Fayer. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Matthew Rodriguez as we get set to put the field together for the upcoming 60-lap main event. And we touched on a little bit before we signed off of the modified race here, Matt, and a lot of the drivers kind of told us the same thing. We're in for an entirely different race for these drivers. And is there anything that we're going to see in these heat races that will apply to the main event? Because it almost looked like we saw two entirely different races when we watched the heats and the main event with the modifieds earlier on tonight.
The only thing I really see that's carried over is a lot of these guys are testing the limits on the wall here, definitely for later in the race and later in the session. I have noticed a lot of bent right rear fenders in, so I think a lot of these guys are pushing the limits of what they can do.
Now, we talked about in the modifieds race that it's really been a battle for victory lane between Ryan Stillwell and Rick Gibson. It's been a little bit more democratic in terms of who gets to victory lane here in the late model. So far, we have had 5 different winners in the first 6 races. Grant Wesley, the only multi-time winner, Scott Schroyer, Martin Carr, Steve Robbins, and Darren Littoral have all found victory lane as well. Ryan Stillwell, we talked with him, the winner from the modifieds earlier on tonight, and he said the late model luck has just not quite been there for him. He's got a shot to maybe start in the pole for tonight's main event. And as soon as I say that, he nearly just got dumped by Rick Gibson. Michael Massey now is going to go to the point, leaving them 3 wide, almost looking 4 wide back there for the second position as Tim DeSchwart took a little peek way up on the top side.
And just looking at these cars moving around the track, we're going to have the same issue as we did in last race where there's going to be a lot of disagreement on real estate. So that's going to be a big question when we all go green here.
Well, now trying to get alongside of Brian Hogue for second, but it looks like that inside line is just not there. That's kind of interesting because we saw everybody migrate down to the bottom in the modifieds race. Everybody seems to want to be up on that second groove here in the early stages of this heat.
Ooh, man, I feel bad for Mitch Bombard. Man, he is not having a very good night here.
Now here he is riding back all by his lonesome. Nobody in front of him, nobody behind him, but Donnie Fayer, who finished second, as we mentioned, in the main event for the modifieds. He is all over Ryan Stillwell. May have not been able to top him in the modifieds race, but certainly tried to do it here, and he muscled his way to the inside there through 3 and 4.
Ooh, those may be the moves I get a little bit of talking about. I don't know if I want to muscle someone out in heats as, Stillwell put it in the fence.
Yeah, so too did Tim DeSchwart. He's been in the wall a couple of times in this one. Again, going back to what we've heard all season long for these drivers, you don't want to hit that outside wall too hard, cause damage to that rear spoiler and take away your downforce into the corner. This race for the win may not be over yet. Brian Hogue is all over the back bumper of Michael Massey. 1 lap to go.
As the question is, how hard is he going to send it going in that final corner?
Wings it wide. Oh, man, he really lost momentum, though. He's going to make contact with Rick Gibson. Gibson's facing the wrong way. Hogue's facing the wrong way. No caution, however, in these heats, and Michael Massey will start on point for the main event.
That was the disagreement on the space.
Well, you asked how hard was Hogue gonna send it into the corner. He sent it in so hard, it sent him up into a groove where there was absolutely no grip, and he nearly looped the thing around. Because of that loss of momentum, sent the 38 and I believe also the 9 into him over there in turns 1 and 2.
And that was just with 7 cars on track.
Yes.
We got number 7 that are coming here.
And it's going to be Todd Mallory that's going to be leading this group in this heat. I believe this is going to be the only other heat that we're going to have tonight. I think 14 drivers are scheduled to take the green flag here tonight for the late model race. Sean Kerrigan to his outside, then Brian Ordo and Steve Robbins in row 2. Sean Green, Grant Wesley, and Ethan Sprague will complete the rest of the field. Now, we talked about during the modified race how last season it was the street stocks that were the first race of this evening, and we know that Grant Wesley won that race. Well, the late models haven't really changed from last season to this, and Wesley is the defending winner in the late model race. So is he the one that we look at here to be the one to go back-to-back seasons with a late model win at Weedsport?
He's obviously a guy that I'd look at to get it done, but I would go back to the great rule of thumb, which is just because I've run it here before doesn't mean I'll win it here again in different conditions, different settings. There's a lot of things different that are not familiar to him. So I'd say it's kind of a learning out process, feeling out process to see if it's similar to last year for him.
Getting ready to go green. Going to be another 8-lap sprint to the checkered flag. Again, here with these heats, we should mention as well, I just mentioned it a little bit back there in that first heat, all 8 laps run under the green flag. There are no cautions in these heats. So if you get involved in a wreck, turn 1, lap 1, you've got to try and work on those final 7 laps to pick up as many spots as you can to improve your starting position for the main event. We already know who's going to start on the pole position with Michael Massey. Who's going to be alongside of him? That gets determined here in this heat.
Oh no! Sean Kerrigan got a little bit of assistance around from Ordo.
They all kept it straight though, and
still beating on each other.
Still rubbing doors are Robbins and Kerrigan. Well, I mentioned that I thought that the modifieds were going to be the cars where you were going to use the car as a weapon to muscle drivers out of the way. So far in these first 2 heats, these drivers have proven me wrong with the late models, as now Wesley makes contact with Kerrigan going into 3. More contact off of 4.
Oh, it's going to be a
Kerrigan.
fun race. Kerrigan's in the wall.
Knocking down the wall off the final corner as Mallory is pulling away. Another interesting thing, too, that we saw in the heat races for the modifieds was if you started up at the front, you had a pretty doggone good chance that you were going to finish up front, and we saw Michael Massey pull away. He had a challenge late, but he held the race lead for every single lap of his heat, and Todd Mallory's doing the same thing.
You know, I'm looking at some of these cars, and the high line definitely looks like the fast lane, but if we've seen these past 2 starts, I don't know if I want to be on that high side trying to pass someone. It just doesn't seem like enough room.
3 cars going to battle for the 3rd position. Brian Ordo in the 71. Grant Wesley's on the bottom in the 88, and that is Ethan Sprague in the 017. Just behind as the gap from 1st to 2nd growing 1.3 seconds. Wesley with contact. He gets out of shape. That brings Sprague to his outside for 4th.
Sprague got a little bit overzealous there. He thought he could send it in a little bit deeper. Almost touched the wall.
Wesley migrating up a little bit higher there as this run goes on. We don't really see them migrate way up to the wall because only 8 laps, and so you're not really going to see these drivers in search mode to find grip since this heat takes place very quickly, but I am seeing that there is that damage to the rear spoiler for Grant Wesley. That might be why we've seen him out of shape a couple of times here on the straightaways. So the white flag is out. The gap has closed by about 4/10. Robbins reeling in Mallory, but he just doesn't have enough time. And Mallory going to be smooth through 3 and 4, and he'll be starting on the outside of the front row for the main event race.
That 220 looks like it should be sponsored by Nickelodeon. There's a lot of high visibility orange and green slime in there.
Boy, you know, now that you mentioned that, now I'm not going to be able to get that out of my mind. Absolutely looks like it should be sponsored by Nickelodeon, but it looks like it is going to be the front row, Michael Massey and Todd Mallory, a rather interesting front row here as well, because if you look at the way that they are positioned in points, Michael Massey finds himself down 7th in the point standings, 41 points out. Todd Mallory, 14th in points, 151 points out. Now, obviously for Mallory, I think that it may be too little too late in terms of trying to get himself into championship competition, but still within striking distance is Michael Massey. If he can have this starting track position here tonight and keep it, he could be looking at his first win of the season, close that points gap up between himself and the points leader coming into tonight, Grant Wesley.
Definitely, because I'm looking here. Only it looks like 20. Actually, I'm trying to figure out points. 41 points back. That's definitely doable.
Right now, the point standings coming into this one, Wesley, the only multi-time winner on the season, is the points leader, 15 points over Steve Robbins, 16 points over Brian Hogue. Tim DeSchwart right now 4th. He is 24 points back. Scott Monksgaard is 5th. He is not in the field here tonight. He was 25 points back coming into tonight. Ryan Stillwell 6th, our winner from the modified race earlier on tonight. He's 34 back. And as we just mentioned, Michael Massey right now 41 back. Other drivers that are racing tonight, they're inside the top 10. Brian Ordo in 8th, Sean Kerrigan in 9th, and Ethan Sprague in 10th. 72 points separating 1st through 10th coming into tonight's event. And of course, we know as well, in the case of Michael Massey, that points are given out for your finishes in the heat races. So with him picking up the win in heat number 1, he's going to be picking up those bonus points as well that Grant Wesley would not have gotten with him finishing outside, I believe it was outside of the top 3 in his heat. I think he finished 4th in his heat.
I believe so. Now, Seth, I know you love historical data. So I went ahead and I pulled up last season's stats for the late model series. And by this time last season, by race 6 of last season, Ryan Stillwell was actually the leader with 3 wins. And it's obviously just looking at last season's stats and this season's stats, it's stark contrast of how much things have changed, where Grant Wesley was actually all the way down in 10th in points, and this season he's leading.
Yeah, I think that 2 things come into play for both Stillwell and for Wesley. For Ryan Stillwell, I think that a big thing could just be the fact that you touched on that, while we are here at Weedsport, while we are still here with the late model cars, there are a lot of different things that have changed. So you're dealing with an entirely different animal every week. The other thing, too, was Grant Wesley last season only ran a partial schedule. He was not able to run the full season, and yet with the way that he was able to pick up a lot of wins, he was still able to keep himself somewhat in contention for the championship. So, a lot of different circumstances between last season to this season, but we should point out, everybody, as well, if we haven't done so already, Wesley was the winner of this event 1 year ago. He swept the weekend at Weedsport with the street stocks and late models. Ryan Stillwell won with the modifieds here earlier on tonight, so he's looking to be the second driver in back-to-back seasons to sweep at this dirt track.
And guess who finished second out of that race last year, or last season?
Oh, man, we broadcasted it. Let me see if I can remember. Was it Stillwell?
Nope, it was DeZwart.
DeSwart, that's right. Yep, DeSwart. I remember that he in that race, too, was one of the few drivers that religiously ran the inside line. Everybody migrated up to the middle line, to the top line, searching for a grip. It didn't matter how many laps into a run we were. He was the only one that religiously tried to take the shorter way around the racetrack. And while it didn't exactly have him up there on Grant Wesley's back bumper on the final lap, it was enough to hold off the rest of the competition behind him to finish in that runner-up spot.
Realistically, I think he just took away the preferred line, because we saw it in the 358 race. We're at low line. While, yes, it was the shortest way around the racetrack and definitely was the preferred line, if you hung down there, you could really stall out someone on the high side.
Like we got a car that's going to be starting towards the rear. Ryan Stillwell pulling down low. Also Brian Ordo pulling down low. So they'll be starting towards the back of the field, it looks like.
Yes, both were given an EOL penalty. Not sure what. I believe they may have taken a voluntary EOL.
Now, one thing that we saw in the early stages of the modifieds race were drivers not really being aware of the braking zones of others, the loss of momentum. We know that these late models are a lot faster. You fly into the corner at a higher speed than you do with the rather bulkier modifieds, the 358s. The closing rate is going to be a lot quicker for these drivers as well. So even more so, your reflexes have to be on point to be aware of the braking zone of the driver ahead of you.
I mean, you got to look. I mean, instead of your front end being exactly where your suspension ended, I mean, you've got a few extra about inches on the front end here, where if you just tuck someone just a little bit, you can get their back wheels off the ground and cause a gigantic accident. So obviously mind the extra few inches.
Yeah, and of course as well too, with the modifieds, you kind of have a box-like, a square-like front end. These drivers kind of have a bit of a shovel on the front end of their car, so that could be catastrophic if you run into the back of somebody. As the green flag's in the air, we're already fanning 3 wide going into turn 1,
Oh, no.
and we're already wrecking going into turn 1.
That was called a bravery test.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted that same
who could
position
brake
going into turn
last?
1.
Caution
that was-
flies. There was at least 4 cars that were facing 90 degrees the wrong way there into turn 1, and well, Michael Massey, he may have had the view that he wanted in the first 200 feet, but not the way that he wanted that first lap to go for sure.
Massey never even had a chance. He barely started turning that first corner, and he got just unfortunately ran in the back of by Donnie. Oh.
There it is again, and there you see Donnie Mayer. I think that was Tim DeSchwart and Rick Gibson that got pieces of that, although even though they got sideways, they were able to punch the throttle, correct the cars back, and continue on. Michael Massey not so lucky, and Michael Massey almost ended up hitting that concrete wall as well. So he dodged a bit of a bullet, did sustain some left front damage, and he has actually brought his car to pit road as well.
You just got to remember, this was not planned. And by what I mean when it wasn't planned is, hey, a lot of these guys, they haven't entered this condensed. Massey, I believe Massey entered on the bottom on the heat, but the guys behind him may have not entered on that bottom line. They may not know how to enter. They may not know how Michael wants to enter. Kind of just a whole list of things that unfortunately wrapped all of this.
So Todd Mallory, who had, well, he, despite the fact that Michael Massey had ended up spinning out, we have seen in the heat races that car on the outside line tends to get a little bit better of a run in the first couple of laps. So Mallory might have actually taken the race lead away from Massey by the time they got off of turn 2, despite the fact that 45 spun around. But he's now going to be the race leader. It's going to be Donnie Fayer behind him in second, Steve Robbins in third, Tim DeSchwart in fourth, and looks like fifth place is going to be the 88 of Grant Wesley. And again, much like in the modified race, the 60 laps these drivers will run will all be under green flag conditions. These pacing laps will not count towards the total as the green flag back in the air.
Being a little bit more of a little more caution on this race.
Yeah, a little bit more give.
But hey, Grant Wesley is definitely attacking that bottom here. He's trying to make a strong charge toward the front.
As he attacks the bottom, attacking the top was Donnie Fayer, and Todd Mallory lost a ton of momentum off of 4, kind of stacked them up. Steve Robbins going to swing around the outside now. Wesley, will see if he migrates up to the top. He can't. Tim DeSchwart is up there.
Oh, we're gonna. That gets back into the danger area of exiting 3 wide in this corner. Wow! Ethan Sprague sent it into that corner. Lost a bunch.
Almost went 3 wide there with Ryan Hogue and Tim DeSchwart, as now DeSchwart behind Grant Wesley. They're trying to make their way around Rick Gibson. Todd Mallory's been able to gather his car back up, currently in the third position.
Sprague just keeps sending it on in there and keeps just pounding the wall. Caution's out.
Michael Massey, another incident for him. Looks like Mitch Bombard going to snake through. Sean Kerrigan was collected up in this one with the 45. And it looks like Massey got sent yet again, this time by the 15.
I don't know how to call that. That looks...
He was already getting out of shape. And
that doesn't look good.
yeah,
That definitely doesn't look good.
I mean, Massey's car looked really stable when
I think
he ended
that
up winning
was-
his heat. That time it just snapped around in the center of the corner.
I think that was a bit of frustration coming out. I think that was a bit of frustration how the race started off.
And for Sean Kerrigan, when you're at a dirt track, you cannot change your lane on a dime. He was already committed to that inside line going through 1 and 2, and makes contact with the 45 of Michael Massey, who is back on pit road again. We're working our second caution, and he is the only driver that has visited pit road so far in this race, a total of twice. Everybody else so far has stayed out in the first 6 laps. As we're getting ready to go back green, and we saw that Donnie Fayer went around the outside to be able to pick up the race lead from Todd Mallory. Now back in the modifieds race, Donnie Fayer had gotten around Steve Robbins, and he was able to hold on to the lead for quite a while before coming under pressure from Ryan Stillwell and eventually losing the race lead, finishing second place. So, we talked about drivers, asking them, what did you learn from the modified race you can apply to the late model race? I think for Donnie Fayer, it's keep the ball in your rearview mirror this time.
And green flags back out. I do know right before we went green, admins just issued a warning saying, watch the pace. A lot of these leaders are trying to slow the pace down and better control the restart.
Caution's out again, though. Sean Kerrigan and Mitch Bombard over in, I think that's turn 1.
Actually, I think it may have been an incident even before Kerrigan even got there.
Back and see what happened there.
I think this one kicked off with...
You're right. Yep, Ryan Stillwell in the 9.
Hey. Looks like both him, and Sprague just sent it a little bit. They're both going for the same spot. And looks like they had a bit of a disagreement. Stillwell went in the wall, or sorry, Stillwell spun down to the bottom, and Sprague went to the wall.
John Green was in the vicinity along with Brian Ordo as well. Kerrigan spun it around trying to avoid the 9 machine up ahead of him. So another caution. And if we're going to play the trends game here from the modified race, we had 3 early cautions in the first 10 laps of that race, then settled into a long green flag run. We're going to have to wait and see if the trends hold true here for the late models.
And it's just worth noting after this, or after I believe this restart, all restarts will be single file.
See if that will settle these drivers into a long green flag run as well. I mean, we're only 6 laps in, and you look at the back bumper, the back area of our race leader, Donnie Fayer. I mean, it is all crumpled up. That rear spoiler has definitely sustained some damage. There's a couple other drivers back there in the field as well that have sustained some damage. Tim DeSchwart was up in the wall earlier on. He's got damage to the back end of their car. So, you know, a lot of drivers that may have been coming into this race with the agenda don't wreck that rear spoiler. I mean, they've already messed up on that strategy.
I mean, even if you do have damage in the back end right now, you've got to play the favorite game, which is damage control. Which is, hey, I'm already in a bad situation. Let's not make this bad situation worse and salvage what we can out of it. That's going to be the big difficulty for a lot of these guys. Of, hey, listen, I'm slower now. I may not have as much grip as I did before. Obviously, damage control is what I need to play.
Green flag in the air, and that time Donnie Fair did not get a good restart. He nearly spun it off of turn 4, trying to get up through the gears. Steve Robbins tried to pounce, could not do it, and we've got a battle for the lead, a battle for third. Wesley trying to do the inside of Todd Mallory. We'll try to see if we can keep an eye on both of those battles as they progress.
Wesley definitely sent it on the restart. He's trying to make the most of everyone being so close together.
Rick Gibson, who we saw in the modified race, starting from 4 laps down to bring it home inside of the top 5. He made the start for the late model race now, currently in the 4th position. As good battle back here where we find Todd Mallory, Brian Hogue, Tim DeSchwart, Ethan Sprague throw a blanket over 5th through 8th.
Gibson's really pushing Wesley here. He's trying to make sure he's staying honest to his line.
Tim DeSchwart looks like his hands are full with that race car. He's been wiggling on the front and back straightaways, up into the wall a couple of times as battle may be brewing for the lead. Donnie Fayer has about 2 car lengths over Steve Robbins, but that last time by, Robbins was a tick quicker.
And Wesley just keeps leaving the door open here for Gibson. He keeps making that mistake, and he keeps parking it in the middle of the corner, and he's just leaving that door open for Gibson just to put it on in there. He may have actually got it done this time.
On the back end there, Rick Gibson step out off of turn 4, lost a little bit of momentum on the straightaway. Wesley tried to clear him, couldn't do it. They remain side by side off of turn 2, going into turn 3. Wesley trying to get the power down, but they still remain dead even. Now it's Wesley that gets the advantage. He'll clear for the 3rd spot going into 1.
Wesley's having to check so much for those corners. He's afraid of knocking in that right rear panel and just leaving that much of a window open for Gibson just to make a charge.
Closest battle on the track right now. Actually, check that. We've also got a battle for the 6th position. Ryan Stillwell trying to make his way up to the front, trying to complete the Weedsport sweep. He's going to get around the 220 of Todd Mallory, who may have been up into the wall a brief moment there. It lost him not only 6th, but also 7th to Tim DeSchwart.
And Robbins is making another attempt on Donnie over here.
And these drive. Oh, man, Donnie trying to cut it low to get to the inside of Mitch Bombard. He nearly spun it around for his troubles.
Oh, man, Mitch is just not having a good day. I'm feeling for him.
He's bringing that car into pit
Caution's
road.
out.
Actually, caution is indeed out. It's going to be, I believe, for
Massey.
that. Is it for Massey?
Yeah, Massey looks like he flipped over. Ooh, and he hit that concrete wall. Aye.
Caution's going to fly here for the 4th time tonight. Now the trend's held true. 3 cautions early and then a long green flag run. We'll see what happened here.
Remember what I was saying in pre-race, where if it hit that concrete barrier, we're going to flick right on over? Unfortunately, looks like that happened, but also for Massey, looks like he also broke the suspension out of it. I'm not sure if he used that fast repair already. that may be the end of his race.
There you saw the hard impact, the limits tested of how low you could run, and right there, that would classify as too low as he ramped it up off of that concrete wall. He's on pit road as we speak. Actually, brought it back out.
Just did a
off of
pass
pit
through,
road.
it looks
Yeah,
like.
he did, yeah.
I believe he may have thought he had a faster pair left.
He'll be out there in the 12th position. Mitch Bombard, that was a break for him, even though he's now trapped 2 laps down. I was going to mention just before that caution came out, we do have a retiree out of the race. That is going to be Brian Ordo in the 71. And why that's important is because last week, when the drivers were at Lernerville, Brian Ordo had a solid outing there and gained 3 spots in the standings, moving from 11th up to 8th. So one week he gains a ton of positions in the standings, and this week he may lose them all back.
And keeping an eye on our last year's trends. Remember, our 1-2 was Grant Wesley and then also Tim DeShort. And right now, it looks like Wesley's in 3rd and Tim's in 7th.
Steve Robbins was a driver that was very much in the championship hunt last season here for the late models, and he's second in the points to Grant Wesley. Right now, 2 positions ahead of the 88 as we're back under the green flag, and Grant actually had his hands full there on the front straight with Rick Gibson.
Mallory's upside down.
Also Sean Green, Michael Massey in the vicinity. And that 220 is not going to be getting back onto its wheels anytime soon. Going to have to call for a tow. And the tough thing for that, too, is when you have to call for a tow, you lose all of that ground at a short track, and then you have to rely on cautions to be able to get them back. Look at the replay here. Looks like going to be some contact between Ethan Sprague in the 017 and the 220 of Todd Mallory, and Todd was having some issues there, it seemed, with being able to at least keep up his momentum through the corner. And we know that Ethan Sprague has been very aggressive on corner entry here tonight, so combine those 2 things together and you end up having a recipe for what just happened. Like, getting ready to go back green flag racing here with Donnie Fayer out in front, Steve Robbins second, Grant Wesley, Rick Gibson, and Brian Hogue. That's going to be the top 5 when we go back green flag racing. We are closing in on halfway. 17 laps have been run of the 60 in our main event here tonight. Like the 45 of Michael Massey got the free pass under this caution. He's back in the lead lap. Mitch Bombard still 2 laps down in 13th. 12 of the 13 drivers still out there, all on the lead lap. And as soon as I say that, 220 of Todd Mallory is actually on pit road, and looks like he may lose a lap or 2 here under pacing. Looks like we should get the 1 to green signal this time around. Donnie Fayer finishing second in the late models, or I'm sorry, in the modifieds earlier on tonight, and now trying to finish 1 position better. But he's got Steve Robbins second in points, Grant Wesley the points leader right there behind him, trying to continue on their consistent seasons. Wesley 2 wins, 4 top 5s and 5 top 10s. Steve Robbins 1 win, 3 top 5s and 6 top 10s. Green flag back in the air as Donnie Fayer got himself a better restart that time than he has the last couple of restarts. And the battle's going to again be for 3rd place. Rick Gibson and Grant Wesley, they have been going at it for the last 10 laps or so. Side by side, nose to tail, Gibson on the bottom, Wesley up on the top side. Wesley still going to prevail on that outside line, it looks like, at least for the moment. Steve Robbins trying to get some momentum going on the bottom. He almost got alongside of Donnie Fayer, and Brian Hogue's got his handfuls back there. Hogue 3rd in the standings, so you've got your top 3 in points all inside of the top 5 right now, with Brian Stillwell and Tim DeShort opening up a bit of a gap from 7th back to an 8th place battle between Michael Massey and Sean Kerrigan. Donnie Fayer continuing to show the way. It looks like now maybe the 073 is losing his momentum. Grant Wesley on the top side seems to be gaining his. He clears Rick Gibson, hangs on to 3rd, now looks to swing to the outside of Steve Robbins for the second position. That last time around, fastest lap of the race was put down by 6th place Ryan Stillwell, who is right down on the bottom trying to crack the top 5, trying to look to make a move on Brian Hogue, who's up and into the outside wall on the front straightaway. Boy, Gibson got close to the left rear quarter panel there, almost got alongside of Wesley. Robbins, oh, he was there through 3 and 4 alongside of Donnie Fayer, could not get the momentum off the final turn. Ryan again here down the back straightaway. He's within striking distance. He's to the inside. Ooh, was there contact there? Couldn't tell from that angle. Great battle for the lead. Great battle for third. And then behind them, you got a battle for fifth. Ryan Stillwell has jumped to the inside of the 14 of Brian Hogue. And Tim DeSchwartz sitting there getting a view of everything that's going on ahead of him. Take a look from the cockpit of the 49. Look at that. He gets a front row seat. Should have a bucket of popcorn. Oh, caution's out. And it's Brian Hogue in the 14. That would have happened right here in front of Tim DeSchwartz, and I didn't even see it happen. What happened to him? Brian Hogue is on pit road now. Was there a flip that took place? The dirt's kicked up there on the windshield. I never even saw anything there when we were on board with the 49. And let's see. Oh, there was a flip. Wow. Never even saw it there with that onboard of Tim DeSchwartz, and it would have been right in front of him. The battle between Hogue and Stillwell for the 5th position going horribly wrong. He rides it up way too high there in turn 1 and then caps it over on its roof and then contact as well with Ethan Sprague in the 017. That would explain why I didn't see the flip, because when these cars go into the corner, they dart down to the left, and so you can't actually see what's up there on driver's right. So that's why I ended up not seeing that wreck take place, even though it would have been right in front of the 49 of Tim DeSchwartz. So Brian Hogue having to teleport to pit lane as we have a second driver out of the race. Mitch Bombard is going to join Brian Ordo behind the wall. He'll finish 13th place here tonight. And we almost made it to halfway. Donnie Fayer will get us back underway. We should be getting the 1 to green this time. Pace laps don't take very long here at Weedsport since it is a dirt track, short track. Steve Robbins will line up in second. Wesley in third. Rick Gibson, Ryan Stillwell will now be the top 5. Tim DeSchwartz will be 6th. Ethan Sprague 7th. Michael Massey, after a lot of his early troubles, he's in 8th. Sean Green 9th. And Sean Garrigan right now completes the top 10. 11th will be Todd Mallory, and right now still sitting on pit road is the 14 of Brian Hogue. It does not look like he's going to be able to get back out there in time to remain on the lead lap as the green flag back in the air on lap 27. 34 laps to go. Battle looks like it's going to be for 5th place. Ryan Stillwell. Rear deck lid full of the 49 of Tim DeSchwartz. And now the battle for the lead closes up. The battle for third closes up. Donnie Fayer, boy, he ran really high up there through that turn of 1 and 2. Opened up the door as he lost some momentum. Steve Robbins trying to stick his nose in there. Not going to be able to do it just yet. Rick Gibson and Grant Wesley continue that spirited battle. Rick Gibson comes into this race 13th in points. He's only made 4, now 5 of the 7 starts this season. And currently 104 points out of the points lead. So he's run a partial schedule this season. He has finished inside of the top 5 2 of his 4 starts, and in the top 10 3 of those times in the race this season, as battle now might be for second. It was a battle for third, but now Grant Wesley and Rick Gibson have been able to reel in Steve Robbins. It actually may be a 4-man fight for the race lead when all is said and done between Fayer, Robbins, Wesley, and Gibson. They've opened up about a second gap back to the 5th place car of Ryan Stillwell. So separating themselves out here as we have now crossed the threshold of halfway through this race. Contact there. Steve Robbins and Grant Wesley. Wesley trying to get to the outside. Robbins trying to pinch and take away that line as he still stays on the bottom, trying to see if he can get back alongside of Donnie Fair. He's done it a couple of times. Now I think he's trapped. I think the 88 was to his outside that time around. Robbins going to let it slide up there through the center of the corner. When he did that, he not only blocked Grant Wesley, but he opened up the door for Rick Gibson to take him 3 wide. Had to slam that door as well. Robbins has his hands full. He doesn't know which line to block. That time, more contact with Wesley, putting him into the wall. So far, he's keeping the 88 and the 38 at bay, but at what cost, at what point are these two drivers going to say enough with this and going to send them out of their way? Because they both right now appear to have cars capable of getting up there and battling for this race win with Donnie Fair, but the 073 is doing a good job of keeping them in the rearview mirror. Donnie Fair is saying, hey, keep doing that. Allow me to open up my distance before they actually get around you. 25 to go, 24 is, wow, that was going to fit a sheet of paper between the nose of the 073 and that inside wall. Robbins doing a tremendous job right now, looking for his 4th top 5 on the season. And the battle's going to be for 3rd place again now, as Rick Gibson got alongside of Grant Wesley. And in turn, those two continue to close up the gap between themselves and Steve Robbins in the 073. Now, while all this battling is going on, we've got a side-by-side battle for the 5th position. Tim DeSchwart, who finished runner-up here 1 season ago. He's trying to swing around the outside of Ryan Stillwell, and that time he sent it way too high. No grip, nearly spun it out, and clobbered the outside wall with the right side of his machine, both right front and right rear. So Stillwell can open up the distance now between himself and DeSchwart, taking firm control of the 5th position. 3rd place, still under contest, still side by side. Wesley still on that outside, and Rick Gibson still on the inside. Traffic up ahead to deal with here as we've gone into a rather long green flag run. Donnie Fair going to have to deal with the 15 of Sean Kerrigan, who now pulls down to driver's left and will get out of the way of the entire top 4. Not really play a factor into holding anybody up. And now the caution is out. It's Michael Massey again in the 45, this time up near pit road entry in turn 4. At least the 3rd caution that Michael Massey has been involved in here tonight. We'll see what happened to him as he's going to kind of show off some Tony Hawk skills over in 3 and 4, getting himself up onto the outside wall. There it is. Oh, and then hard impact with the driver's side. Side slamming, broadsiding the wall just at the pit road entry. Caution out once again. Nice long green flag run there. It's going to set us up for a restart with less than 20 to go. Should be 19 to go when we get the green flag. And as you saw right there, it kind of seemed like everybody, I don't know if they were in search mode or what, but it just kind of seemed like everyone was stalled out. Nobody could make up any ground on the other. Saw Gibson and Wesley stayed side by side for the longest time. Robbins was able to make a couple of charges on Donnie Fair, but then kind of faded back and couldn't close the gap up between himself and the race leader. So I think for this final 20 laps, these drivers are going to enter into ultra search mode to try and find some grip. We'll see. Might have to go right up there against that outside wall, but again, you don't want to ruin that rear spoiler and kill your downforce. The race leader, Donnie Fair's rear spoiler, has been damaged since, I think it was lap 3. So he certainly, obviously, is struggling for downforce, but it hasn't affected him in terms of holding off drivers for the lead. As green flag back in the air, we got a car, looks like, that might be sitting on pit road smoking. No, apparently that's not the case. Must just be the way that the lights are hitting the track. As green flag back in the air with 19 laps remaining. That battle, surprise, surprise, it's going to be for 3rd place. Actually, no, correction. Steve Robbins was able to get alongside, but man, he got loose there off of 4. That's going to cost him momentum. Brings Grant Wesley back to his outside, Rick Gibson back to his inside, and Donnie Fair says thank you very much for that little slip-up. He's going to open up the distance once again. Ryan Stillwell and Tim DeSchwart, 5th place battle, heating up once more. Short trying to make sure he doesn't make a mistake this time in his attempt to crack into the top 5. Behind them, Sean Green and Ethan Sprague. They were side by side for a brief moment for 7th. Todd Mallory right there as well in the 220, and that's, I believe, Brian Hogue in the 14, who right now is scored 1 lap down in the 12th position. 12 drivers running, 11 currently on the lead lap. Here's the battle for 2nd place. Steve Robbins has it. Rick Gibson has been able to finally clear Grant Wesley, move into the podium, and now sets his sights on Moore. As let's see if he's going to be able to work with 15 laps, now make it 14 laps to close up the gap between himself and 2nd, as well as the race leader. Doesn't look like much visibly, but that translates out to 1.2 seconds from 1st back to 3rd. That time Gibson, a little too high, got to the outside wall, and that's going to be something I think we're going to see here in these final 14 laps. His driver is getting just a little too high there, looking for grip. I mean, look at how this track is rubbered in. There's just a little sliver of dark soil up there at the top of the racetrack. Everywhere else you can see it's all been rubbered in, so there's not a whole lot of grip for these drivers to be able to lean on now. If they're going to find any grip whatsoever, they've got to put it right up against the outside wall and hope that the wall doesn't kill their momentum, which you see right there is happening to the 38. He's hitting the line he has to hit. That's where the grip is. But then when he hits the wall, he loses a couple of miles per hour, can't get the hammer down through the center of the corner, get the momentum on the straightaway. And that's why Steve Robbins has been able to keep him in the rearview mirror. I am surprised Grant Wesley's not really been able to capitalize on that, however, as he's right down there on the inside line. Ooh, Rick sent it that time. Let it ride up off the corner. Almost up to the outside wall, and oh boy. Battle for the race lead might be on with traffic just ahead. That's Michael Massey and Sean Kerrigan. Where are they going to go? As Robbins made a charge, it didn't work, and which line are the leaders going to take? Up to the top side goes Fayer. Whoa! Almost runs into Michael Massey. Now Robbins going to dive it to the inside, and things are getting really hairy through lap traffic for the race leaders with less than 10 to go.
Bayer made a really amazing move around Massey on the low side. Massey almost came right back at him. Oh man, dealing with the lap traffic right now.
Oh man, good grief. Fayer nearly 90 degrees the wrong way going into that corner.
Oh, no.
Sean Kerrigan's going to get hooked off the nose, and I think that was Grant Wesley. Caution flies.
Wesley and Tim also got involved.
Tim DeSchwartz stopped in the middle of the track. There is Kerrigan, and typical of short tracks, that is what happens when the race leaders catch up to drivers on the tail end of the lead lap. And just like that, we're getting ourselves set up for a 6-lap shootout to finish this thing out.
Now it's more or less just wrong place, wrong time.
Well, Sean Kerrigan, the last time the leaders caught him, he went down to the inside to let the leaders by. Already documented that Grant Wesley was running the inside line, so there were different drivers in different lanes, and see right here, I think Kerrigan's going to try and drive it low to get out of the way. Grant Wesley had a heck of a run on him going through turn 2, and, you know,
Looks like he just kind
unfortunately...
of got shoved down.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
just kind of got shoved down.
Kerrigan didn't know where to go, I don't think. Didn't know
There
which
is no
lane
right
the drivers
answer.
wanted.
Yeah, there was no right answer out of that one because he's getting shoved down by Gibson, and by the time he got down, Wesley was already there on the bottom.
Tim DeSchwartz, who was running in the 6th position, looks like he's still going to be around that area. Well, actually, no, looks like he may be dropping through the field now. We're going to go on board with him, and you'll just see there's just no reaction time for him to be able to avoid the 15 of Sean Kerrigan, who was still sitting in the middle of the racetrack after he got spun by Grant Wesley.
It looks like they've also delayed the restart here.
There you see the spin. Kerrigan comes back up the track, and there is the hit. Actually, it's into the back of Grant Wesley's 88. There is Kerrigan coming to a stop in the Harley-Davidson machine. So it was interesting there when these drivers are working their way through traffic, or actually just before they caught them. Steve Robbins tried again to be able to make a move, but I mean, again, you see that the track is completely rubbered in for almost the entirety of the track, so I hesitate to say it, but is the only way you're going to be able to beat this 00 is maybe try and pull off a slide job?
Maybe not a slab job. How brave do you feel for a bump and run?
You got to get to him first.
Well, bumping's not the issue. Running away, that's the issue.
Yeah. Get to him and run away before he can get you back.
Here, I think you may give him a shot, and he'll pay you back next turn.
Donnie Fair, as he gets us back underway, he finished second earlier on tonight. He wants to get redemption and win with the late models. Battle's going to be maybe for second. No, it may be for the race lead because Steve Robbins is within striking distance. So is Rick Gibson. So is Grant Wesley.
Gibson is fast. He's making that outside line work on exit. The big question is if he's going to be able to do that outside line and not get overtaken on the inside. Oh, no.
Steve! Oh, he tried it on that inside, got way too loose. Loses second, loses third, and maybe more.
Gibson took a really bad line there.
Gibson's going to have some contact there between himself and Steve Robbins. Oh, Robbins! Oh, man, he hit the concrete barrier.
Oh, no.
Oh, wow. And you have to wonder if maybe that little bit of contact between himself and the 38 forced him down to that extreme low line.
That's someone giving it all they got, and unfortunately it was just a little bit too much.
You talked about the risk versus reward. I mean, the risk was that you were going to end up having this not pan out the way you wanted, more than likely lose spots in the running order, and potentially not only lose spots in the standings, but to have your points lead increase between you and Grant Wesley. The reward was that you were going to be able to get that second position.
I'm just looking on board here, and man, he was trying. He was digging.
We see as he hits that concrete barrier. Close call as well for Todd Mallory in the 220. He was able to avoid, and even the worst heartbreak there for Steve Robbins was the fact that that car did not come back onto its wheels, and so he has to call a tow, and that's going to be more time and more positions that he's going to lose with only a handful of laps left in this race.
Man, Gibbs making that outside line work, inside line work, he was coming.
And now he's the second place car that race leader Donnie Fair has to worry about. So we're going to be going back green with 3 laps to go. Ooh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm this 00, if I'm going to be able to defend against this 38, because it seems like he's holding no prisoners. But there's a good restart to open up the gap between himself and the 38 car.
Look at Wesley. Wesley's trying to dig, trying to get the good exit off.
2 laps to go this time by. Will they make it around? Will we see another caution before we get to the white flag as Gibson again is there? Oh, way up the track went Donnie Fair. He is hanging it out.
That really aggressive high line, and Gibson just trying to stick it in there for all he's worth and trying to slide up with him.
If these two make contact and stall momentum, Grant Wesley's in there. He dives it in deep, looking 3 wide. It may be these 3 down to the final 2 corners.
Oh, Gibson's going to try and stick it in there. I wouldn't lift.
Gibson going to drive it in deep. Is he going to get the momentum up the corner? Oh, it's too close. Was it Gibson? It was Fair. Oh, my goodness.
By
the start-finish line is not easy to distinguish at the dirt tracks, but Fair by 19 1,000ths got it done.
And Fair was he was trying. He was loose off the corner. He was not going to lift for anything, and I don't blame him. He tried.
And I don't know if you noticed that, but a little extracurricular activity. Remember, it was Donnie Fair who sent Michael Massey, who was then the pole sitter, turn 1, lap 1. And a little bit of payback there on the cooldown lap.
That sounds like maybe a small meeting with the officials. They're definitely going to take some interest in that.
Well, Donnie Fair, who finished runner-up with the modifieds earlier on tonight, he's going to be in victory lane now for the late models. Rick Gibson's going to get a top 3 finish in second, and Grant Wesley, who won this race 1 year ago, we'll be talking to him momentarily and get to find out what might have been different between last year and this year, as he still will bring it home with a solid run of third. Ryan Stillwell went for the sweep, couldn't do it. He still had good numbers here tonight with a win in the modifieds and a 4th place in the late models, and Ethan Sprague is going to complete the top 5, but then you go down through 6th through 10th, and there's a couple of drivers that from the midway point on had to kind of overcome some adversity. But how about Brian Hogue? Got the lucky dog on that last caution and was able to move his way up to 8th. This was a driver that was destined to finish in 12th, so picked up a couple of extra points there in the closing stages.
And Donnie didn't have faith in himself that he would be able to get another interview. Can't believe he doubted himself.
Nope. Hey, sometimes it's those that go in a little bit scared that end up surprising themselves, so we'll be talking with him in a moment. Here's the rest of the drivers. Of course, the heartbreak would have to be Steve Robbins. I mean, that car ran second for almost the entirety of this race, and as we saw, that incident of him hitting that concrete wall through 3 and 4 is going to finish him 1 lap down in the 12th position. The worst news for him is the fact that because he finished down there and Grant Wesley finished in the podium, the points lead is going to increase between the two of them heading into Charlotte Dirt next week.
Absolutely. We've got Grant Wesley here ready for the or waiting in the rating room. Let's go ahead and
User
bring him
was
up here.
moved to your channel.
Hey Grant, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, man, we know that there's a huge difference between last season and this season. Last season, you weren't able to run the entire schedule, but last season here at Weedsport, you swept the weekend with the street stocks and the late models. You finished 3rd place here tonight. What were some major differences that you kind of saw with the track, maybe the car here tonight, maybe even the drivers in the field that varied from last season that you had to maybe kind of adjust to?
Oh, those guys that I was running with up front, Donnie and Rick and Steve, they were all doing a really good job. I mean, I really don't know. I think it was just maybe a little bit of lack of talent. I'm not sure, but the track got really tricky tonight. It was really slick. I was struggling a little bit with the transition from the modifieds to the late models tonight for some reason. And but yeah, overall, it was a pretty good race.
I've got to ask you, Grant. You had an eventful race. At any point in that, did you think, this is over, game's over?
Oh, I never throw my cards in. I always keep digging and I always try to get it faster and faster every lap. I'm always searching for that grip, and I feel like I searched all over this track tonight. I know early on I was running the top because that's usually where I like to run, and I know Rick was rolling the bottom pretty good, and we were drawing pretty even down the straightaways. I didn't quite know how to run the bottom real well. But then there at the end, as the track went away, there just wasn't anything to grab a hold of up top. So I went down low, and there was a lot of bite down low. But the problem is that's where everybody else is wanting to be. So you can't pass them if you're following them. So, yeah, I don't know. We did what we could. I'm happy with the 3rd place.
Great. You talked about searching all over the track, and if we look back at the modified race, we saw yourself, we saw a couple of other drivers, even in the closing stages, making a lot of forward progress. It seemed like here with these late models, like the track and all the different grooves got rubbered in a lot sooner than they did in the modified race, kind of taking away your guys' option of being able to find that little bit of added grip late in this race. Was that something that you guys struggled with? Because I know you guys wanted to maybe use that extreme outside groove, but as we've heard, drivers don't want to go up there, hit the wall, and lose their downforce with damage to the spoiler.
Yeah, those 358 modifieds are awesome. I think that's probably my favorite car in the whole sim right now. I believe, at least word on the street, is that those cars have a slightly different tire model, so it kind of simulates the roll of the sidewall, and it gives you a little bit more bite, and it's easier to maneuver with those cars, and I think it just makes them more racy all around. So yeah, I think that's why you definitely seen comers and goers with the modifieds. I know in that modified race, I felt bad for getting in the J. We had a really good race going on there, so I apologize to him for that, but I was glad to see him rebound and get a good finish out of it. But yeah, back to the late models. Yeah, you're exactly right. it just kind of slicked the track off, um, and you just had to be on top of where the moisture was. You had to chase that line around, and whoever did the best job of that was going to win. And it's no mistake that Donnie and Rick finished in front of me. They did an awesome job.
Well, Grant, obviously we know you would love to have won in back-to-back seasons here with the late models at Weeds. Still a solid outing here tonight. You extend your points lead going into Charlotte next week, so congrats on that. We look to forward to seeing if that momentum can continue as you're trying to chase that championship. Still a long ways to go. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, thanks to you guys for doing the broadcast. Awesome as always. I'd like to thank the owners here at Rolling Thunder Gaming, Terry Bauman, Sean Prime, and David Cannon. I'd like to thank my fellow admins tonight, Brian Hogue and Brian Ordo. Thank my friends and family for watching, my girlfriend, Brittany, and my teammates at XFM.
That's Grant Wesley, P3 here tonight in the late models at Weedsport. Once again, congrats on a great run there, Grant, and best of luck here for the second half of the season.
Thanks, guys.
User was moved out of
All
your
right,
channel.
let's see if we can get our second place
User was
finisher,
moved
Rick
to your
Gibson.
channel.
Rick, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Man, we got to just quickly touch back here on the modifieds race because we saw you start this race 4 laps down, get the lucky dog enough times to get back in the lead lap, and then fight your way up there inside of the top 5. With the way you were able to charge in that race, was that how we were able to see you be as aggressive as you were here tonight with the late models?
Yeah, it gave me, I'd say, a bit more confidence with even just getting laps out there. I wasn't even going to run because, like you said, I was already like 4 or 5 laps down, but I figured I'd just go out there, get some laps. And then they're gracious enough to be patient with me and give me some lucky dogs. So got back on the lead lap and was able to find some grip down there and gave me quite a bit of confidence.
Rick, I'm sorry to keep beating the previous race, but this is something I even want to ask you with the modified race, but unfortunately you didn't get to the top 3. You only got to the top 5, but you're 4 laps down at one point. How in the world did you keep yourself motivated and just to get yourself back up there?
I just didn't want to give up, it's all part of it. I mean, I knew the rules and figured you can get one lucky dog around for a caution. So I was hopeful. It sucked to see that many cautions, but it played in my favor and it allowed me to get back on the lead lap. So once I finally got up there, I figured it was go time, and I kind of been testing around and seeing where I could run if I did get back on the lead lap. So it just kind of all fell into place.
All right, Rick, so let's now switch gears here to the late model race. I mean, it was going to come down, it looked like, between you and that 00. Maybe Grant Wesley was thinking about going 3 wide with the 2 of you, but what a photo finish there. 19 one-thousandths of a second. I mean, I was saying that, the start-finish line's not really visible at these dirt tracks. You're really only able to distinguish it by where the flag stand is. So, I mean, was there a point where crossing the line you thought, hey, I've got this thing, and then you had to check your relative just to make sure?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I knew, I think it was coming to the white flag or on the white flag. Like I knew it was going to be a good one. I knew it was going to be a drag race coming out of 4. So as soon as I got a little bit of grip, I held that thing to the floor, and as soon as I crossed the finish line, just looked down and saw second. So pretty disappointed to look down and see the split on that one and lose that by that little. But I mean, getting second place with kind of the raw deal we got, getting caught up in that heat race is can't be too mad about that.
Yeah, tremendous run for you here tonight. Congratulations, Rick. We're now going to turn the microphone over to you for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, I want to thank all the guys at RTG, Grant, Brian, Terry for watching. Hoping you're getting better, buddy, and hope to see you again soon. You guys for coming out here and doing an awesome broadcast. You guys have done a couple for these guys, so you guys do a really awesome job, and the commentary is next to none. So thank you guys, and all the guys who run with RTG. I mean, I got a lot of respect for them. Most of the guys really run hard and clean. I got nothing but respect for Grant and everybody. So it's always fun, and Vicious Graphics and Heart Esports and setups by Gary Peck.
All right, that's Rick Gibson. He gets his 3rd top 5 finish of the season, 2nd place here tonight with the late models at Weedsport. Congratulations on a great run there, Rick. Just kind of get the feeling with the runs you've had the last couple of weeks. we're going to see that 38 in victory lane very shortly.
Yeah, it's been a rough past couple of ones, so to have good runs this weekend, it's really uplifting. So can't wait to run some more.
And now let's see if we can
User
make
was
our
moved
way
out of your
down to
channel.
victory
User was
lane
moved to
where
your
Donnie
channel.
Fayer is standing by. Hey, Donnie, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth again. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
And when you crossed the start finish line and won this race, Matt touched on the fact that you said in the post race last time that we talked to you with the modifieds, you didn't have that high of a confidence level coming into this thing. But man, that car looked like it'd been through a war zone only 10 laps in, but you were able to hold them off.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of luck. Oh man, that was a good race though. That was pretty exciting. There at the end, I mean, I don't know what the difference was, but it couldn't have been very much for first and second.
I mean, I got to give you the attaboy because I'm watching this replay over again, and you just barely angled your car to a point where it crossed the line first. Now I got to hit the hard. Now I got to ask the hard hitting questions. Michael
Yeah.
Massey,
What?
what's your take on that?
What about it?
Post race.
Oh, would I get hit or something?
Yes.
No, I didn't pay no attention. I seen somebody hit me, but I didn't even know who it was. I didn't care. I was so thrilled to win. Oh, man, that was the longest race ever, though.
You know, Matt touched on the fact that, look back at that replay about your ability to be able to just barely angle that car enough to be able to edge Rick Gibson at the line. And, we see photo finishes at 1.5 tracks and super speedways where it's paved. I mean, how difficult is it to kind of keep yourself mentally focused that, I got to have this car as straight as possible, to have that straightaway speed, to have the momentum over that car that's beside me to the start finish line, all the while making sure you're not going to hit the wall, making sure you're not going to hit the car that's beside you. I mean, there's so many things to think about. How do you focus on just that one thing of making sure you're going to be the straightest car to get to the start finish line first?
Man, I was just holding that thing and praying that I wouldn't hit that wall, but because, man, that straightaway was getting bumpy there towards the end. I mean, you had to work that wheel to stay straight. And I was riding the high side. I noticed a lot of the other guys were on the inside, but, man, I would just get a run coming off of 4, and I think that's the only thing that saved me. I kept seeing them onto the inside in 3 and 4, and I had to keep telling myself, don't try to block them, just keep running your line, and I had to talk myself quite a bit through that race.
Well, Donnie, we saw that a couple of weeks ago. You brought it home in your first race of the season at Cedar Lake in the 5th place position. You get your best career finish, though, here tonight with a win at Weedsport. Congratulations. We're going to give you one final opportunity here to do some more thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Man, I'd like to thank Skills VR and my son, Brent Fair, and everybody in this league, man. It's a good bunch of guys, and y'all for broadcasting, and that's it.
All right, that's Donnie Fayer. What a night here at Weedsport. A runner-up in the modifieds and a win in the late models. Congratulations there, Donnie. Go and enjoy this victory.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
User was moved out of your channel.
And next week, these drivers will be officially heading into the second half of the season, where it's pretty much going to start to set the stage for who's going to be a contender for the championship and who is not. For Donnie Fayer, obviously, with this being only his second start of the season, he won't necessarily be in championship contention unless he can hit a hot streak here. And what better way to start than with a trip to victory lane? But Matt, if we look at the two races, and we obviously fully expected this because we see this every time that we broadcast the RTG dirt racing, two entirely different races. It was kind of a runaway for Ryan Stillwell back with the modifieds, but not the case here with the late models. We had 3-4 drivers that were consistently up there inside of the top 4 with less than a second separating them.
This kind of race kind of reinforced that theory that we had of, even though these cars are so different, even though, kind of the characteristics are so different, what you learn from the earlier race, the 358 modifieds, you can take into the late models and actually expand upon. Didn't work with Stillwell, but definitely worked with Donnie.
19 1,000ths of a second. A lot of times you normally don't get photo finishes at a dirt track. I believe coming into this race, the closest battle that they had actually had was back at USA International, and that was 0.2 of a second. So a nail biter here to finish out this one.
Definitely so. I mean, those are the kind of finishes that, a lot of these guys, they hate winning by, 3 seconds. Yeah, they have a win, but nothing feels better than one of these close wins.
Grant Wesley with that third place run. As we mentioned, he's running the full schedule this season. Last year, he had a number of wins in both then street stocks as well as the late models, but was not able to compete for the championship. I mean, right now it's looking like if anybody down the second half of this stretch is going to be wrestling the championship away, it's going to be from that 88.
Definitely speaking, I will say it may be a little bit of a hot take, but Grant Wesley definitely is looking a little bit weaker this season. In opposition of last season, where, last season he would come out of the gate swinging, and this season it almost looks like a fresh outlook.
Well, a reason for that could potentially be because he wasn't in the championship hunt last season, he could race aggressively with nothing to lose. Now he's in points conservation mode, making sure that he doesn't lose any ground to the drivers behind him. So he may have actually had to change his race mentality since he's running full time now.
It's kind of the thing you can't. For the part-time schedules, you think, hey, you can come in, you can kind of bulldoze the field a little bit, not intentionally, but hey, if you ruffle feathers, well, unfortunately, I'm only here for a few races. And when you run that full season, guys have your number, guys have your name. They will find you.
That part-time mentality might have been exactly what was able to help Donnie Fayer be able to pick up the victory here tonight, since it was only his second start of the season. But crazy racing here tonight at Weedsport. Ryan Stillwell, he increases his points gap, picking up his 4th win of the season in the modifieds, and Donnie Fayer gets his first late model win in a photo finish with Rick Gibson in the late models. Great racing all around here tonight under the lights at this dirt short track. And Matt, I appreciate you joining me in the booth here tonight for this one.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night, as Flatout Racing Network is going to be bringing you coverage of the NSRA Daytona 500 to cap off what's been a great week of racing all around. For one final time, for Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. We'll see you guys soon, as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.